The fourth and the final part of the loan process. We've covered pre-qualification at the beginning, pre-approval, going under contract, the lion's share of the loan process, that typical 3 to 4 week period, and now closing. Closing means everything is getting finalized and you're getting the keys. So what happens is this: in advance of closing, the big words that we want to hear from an underwriter are clear to close. That means everything's set and it's just getting all the numbers balanced, finalized, schedule the closing, all those things. So what's going to happen first is you will get, no later than 3 days before closing, you will get what's called the initial closing disclosure. It might have the exact final numbers, but oftentimes that needs to be balanced between the title company and then the Eustace mortgage closer to make sure everything is exact, because based on the closing date, they're figuring the interest per diem. I'll explain in a minute why that matters. So that's one that you e-sign. You make sure that's knocked out. You're all good. You're with your realtor. You're making sure you're getting your final walkthrough schedule, when that's going to be. You're talking that through. You're scheduling the closing with the title company, an agreeable time with the buyer and the seller. And here's the interesting thing. In the state of Louisiana, and every state is different, but Louisiana has allowed for hybrid closings. What that means is, in the old days, you had to physically, what they call wet sign with a pen, everything. Now, the morning of closing, about half of it, you can e-sign. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it will save you, let's say, a half an hour, 45 minutes plus in signing. So it's huge. And those tend to be more the documents that are more so just kind of the government docs, the informational things that the attorney at the title company isn't going to need to talk through with you so much. They can, but probably not. So you'll get that initial CD, and then no later than, of course, the day before closing, oftentimes before that, you'll get the final CD. When that happens, I give you a call, we go through the numbers. The big things with every client that I always point out are to show, one, the difference between what we quoted up front in the loan estimate as compared to the closing disclosure on the back end. Typically, the fees come down, but that's always a good compare contrast for that. Then I'm showing, okay, we go through it. Here's the interest rate. Here's all the particulars, the monthly payment. We've already talked through that, but just to see that, then to see, okay, the earnest money deposit, given credit for that. Any seller concessions, given credit for that. Appraisal paid in advance, given credit for that. Things like that are key. We review that, and then at that point, I see you at closing. I'm reminding that you need to bring, obviously, yourself. You need 2 forms of ID, driver's license or passport, plus something else. And then you show up at the title company. You want to count on that to take about an hour, oftentimes less, but that's a good kind of time period to allow for. Title companies typically are going to work weekdays, business hours. So we show up, the attorney walks through everything. They will go through the CD with you if you like, but we've already discussed it, so that's rare that ever happens. Prior to closing, you've done the walkthrough with the realtor, make sure there's no surprises, make sure everything looks, as it should be, and basically you sign your docs, the seller signs their docs. Once that's all official, then you get the keys. And what happens then at that point is this, and this is key for budgeting's sake. The month that you close in, you don't make a payment. When I'm recording this, we are in September of 2025. So it doesn't matter whether it's September 1st, September 30th, you are going to close, let me take that back. Whether it's September 1st or September 30th, you won't have a payment due in September. Neither will you in October, because the first payment will be 2 months after closing. So a client who closes beginning, end of the month, doesn't matter. 2 months down the line, based off September, that will be November 1st. Why is that? Because when that November payment is made, it is covering in arrears for the month of October. When you pay rent, you're paying in advance. When you pay a mortgage, you're always paying arrears the other direction. Now you'd say, well, wait a minute, but if you close in September, if it's the 1st or the 30th, what about that? If you're moving in, why don't you have a note? That's what the interest per diem is going to take care of. If you close on the 1st, then all the rest of the month, the interest per day is collected. If you close the 30th, and I believe we have 31 days in September, then you would have one more day, or whatever day that is, you'll cover through the end of that particular month. And that's how that works. Two things I always mention to clients at closing. In Louisiana, we allow for a $75,000 homestead exemption. That means your property taxes will be reduced or prorated by the first $75,000. Here's the good news. When I did your pre-approval up front, I based it on that being the case. Unless you have an existing property and this is an investment property, something like that. But in most cases, I'm figuring the homestead exemption. Also, the title company, when they figure your taxes with the assessor, they're doing the same thing. Doesn't matter which parish, everybody gets that same $75,000. If you don't, though, go to the parish, and do you need to do that immediately? No, but you don't want to wait too long. If you don't go to file for your homestead exemption, your tax bill will go up. So what I do at closing is in our text thread, I'll make sure that you have that information. I'll kind of talk through. A lot of the good title companies will also explain it and sometimes even have an info sheet based on the particular parish, what you need for that. Usually you need the active sale. You're going to get that from the title company, your updated driver's license, and then thirdly, depending on the parish, either any utility bill or the Entergy bill. Once you have those three items, then you schedule it. For New Orleans, you can either do that in person at City Hall, or you can schedule to do that digitally via probably Zoom, and you just send them the documents. The great thing is this: once you file for your homestead exemption, you're in. You do not have to renew it every year. You're all set. That passed a few years ago. That helps a lot. So here's the great thing. You've made your payment. Everything's moving along. You will get and have that moment, same as everybody does, same as I did when I bought my first house. When you get the first property tax bill, you get your first homeowner's insurance bill, you're going to have the freak out moment. You will have the freak out moment of like, wait a minute, I thought a little bit of my payment was going toward the principal and interest, a little bit of my monthly payment going toward the property taxes, a little bit of my payment going toward homeowner's insurance, flood insurance if it's in a required zone. Separately if it's not. But I thought I was paying in that. Why do I have this? If you look at the fine print, or as should be in bold right across the top, I think most parishes will have that. This is not a bill, meaning it's being paid for on your behalf out of the escrow account. The escrow account is like a mini bank account, and when you have a few $100s each month going toward the taxes, going toward the insurance, that builds up little by little by little. So when a year from closing, the homeowner's insurance bill is due, that's paid on your behalf because you've been paying it all along. When the property tax bill is due, I would say probably New Orleans early in a year, other parishes end of a year, that's paid on your behalf. So they're sending you that information just so you know that that's due. Now, if you put down X amount of money and you prefer to pay your taxes and your insurance yourself, that's a different thing. But the vast majority of people just do that through their mortgage. Another thing that's key to know is your information is public record. So for about a month or so, you're going to get spammer stuff. You're going to get info from security companies that exist, security companies that don't exist. They're either trying to, they and everybody else, not the legit ones, but all this stuff you're going to get by regular mail, probably some email, maybe even some text. They're trying to either get money from you, a deposit or money for something that you don't need, or two, they want to get information, identity information. In either case, as I tell every client, if in question, take a photo, take a screenshot, send it to me. If it's insurance related, I'll reach out to the insurance agent just to make sure that there's not any kind of issues, that it's legit. Otherwise, 9 times out of 10, I can tell immediately, what it is for that. Here's another key thing most people don't know, which is this. For insurance, the insurance company can come around after you close and check things out. They can make sure, is everything in order, essentially a drive-by. They might come in, but it's rare. But sometimes that surprises people, but that actually can happen. But again, That's what all this takes. This gets to the finish line. So if you didn't watch number 1, pre-qualification, all the way up to parts 2 and parts 3, feel free to go back and watch those. This is number 4, everything that leads up to closing, closing itself, and then after.